Only 6 months after release, and we finally get the Separate Ways campaign for the Resident Evil 4 remake. So I went my separate ways with 10 of my hard-earned dollars, installed it, and then didn't play it while I worked on the My Friendly Neighborhood video, which you should watch. But this last week I did play it, and oh boy do I gotta say, I wish women were real. Hi, I'm GhostsOnHoliday, and today we're going to talk about grappling hooks and the sexy women who like to use them. Separate Ways was a campaign added to the original game with its PlayStation 2 release, probably as a carrot and stick to get players to rebuy the game. This time around, it's a DLC, which means everyone gets to play it, except for anyone who's playing on the GameCube. But is it necessary? Did we really need Separate Ways in the remake? Is it as good as the base game? I'm here to ask all these questions and more today because clickbait gets clicks, and that's why it's called clickbait. I'm sure half the comments will answer the question without watching the video, so thanks for the engagement, and remember to also like and subscribe. For some reason, I haven't played the original Separate Ways in like 10 years, so I'm talking about this game on its own merits and not in reference to the original. I did 3 playthroughs of it, 1 regular first-time playthrough, and then 2 S+ speedruns, and after all these playthroughs, I have some thoughts, opinions, and some feelings. The DLC of course plays a lot like the base game, but there are some additions and changes. The biggest one is the use of Ada's grappling hook, which allows some levels to have a bit of verticality, and also lets Ada do Batman grapple hook kicks that look like they hit so hard they'd concuss a bus full of children. Ada does feel a bit more lithe than Leon, and I don't know if that's because she's faster, with a smaller hitbox, or just because you can whip yourself at enemies like Spider-Man.
Pizza time.
One of my favorite gameplay moments featuring the grappling hook and this new verticality is a fight against an El Gigante, which sees you fighting not only on the ground but on top of these buildings. As you fight, you realize that the buildings are destructible, and just like women do to my confidence, the El Gigante destroys them as you stand atop them. This was a really cool moment and something that I didn't really see coming, and you didn't really see much of in the base game except in little cutscenes, so this was incredibly rad to experience as I was playing. I did get agitated occasionally by the little grapple prompt. It just makes a noise that I found kind of annoying, but I did get used to it eventually. Early on, there was also a bit of a focus on stealth, but it always throws it away really quickly. It feels like they were just putting in stealth segments because they have a stealth system and they need like a minute of stealth in the game to meet their stealth quota. Speaking of quotas, you can also buy charms straight from the merchant this time around, which is nice. I really felt like I had to budget and ration my money in this DLC, even when I was going out of my way to get every treasure, because there's actually a lot to buy in this 6-hour campaign, so you have to pick and choose. One of these little charms that you can buy from the merchant actually gives you the ability to yank shields away from the shield enemies, which was really satisfying when I actually remembered to equip it. Oh, god damn it. Last but not least, Ada has this Spike Spiegel robot eye, super contact lens. It's like the Batman Detective Vision mode. It's called Iris, and I guess they just threw it in because she already moves around like him, so might as well take the detective mode too. It doesn't really add much. I think it's just there to give Ada a bit more of that spy flavor in the gameplay. Like, oh, fancy robot contact lets you do spy investigation. Ooh, crazy. Crazy tech for 2004. As far as gameplay goes, that's all that's really changed from the base game. It still has the little side quests. It's still clunky in the ways that the base game was clunky. Still infuriating in the way the base game was. Having said that, I still think this DLC was a lot of fun in the gameplay department. Basically just added a lot of spy shit on top of the already fun game, though it didn't really reduce the things that made the base game frustrating. If you want to hear about my specific frustrations with the remake's gameplay, check out my Resident Evil 4 remake video here. Thank you. Now, on to what we really care about, the plot. The plot of Separate Ways is complicated, but also incredibly simple. Think of it as a sort of Team Dark situation from Sonic Heroes. Rouge is Ada, and Shadow is Wesker, and the robot is Luis, I guess. Instead of getting Ashley like Leon does in the main game, she is instead going after the Amber, a piece of rock candy parasite that is incredibly powerful. Unlike Ashley though, the Amber can't get up and walk around on its own. Our Hunnigan is Wesker, and unlike Hunnigan, he just decides to show up and be an asshole in person, as Wesker does.
Interesting.
I found Wesker showing up to be confusing because, like, why not just do this all yourself if you're gonna come in person? If he's trying to keep a low profile, just kind of coming to the island to pester your agent doesn't seem like the best idea, but whatever, it's Wesker, he does what he wants. I also just realized that he took some of her blood here, but he still could have sent someone else to do that, so my point stands. You're infected and hunted by a black robe, which is basically the other bodyguard, which I correctly guessed was you three this time around. She shows up to make you hallucinate and also walks at you at a very slow but menacing pace, as any good horror villain does. As mentioned before, Luis is also here. The Separate Ways campaign does show that Luis really was trying to help Ashley and Leon, but also Ada. We don't really learn anything new about Luis, we just get to see even more of who he was, and the fact that he is, in fact, yes, a ladies' man. This is something else that I picked up on and thought was really funny with this side story. It seems like everyone has the hots for Ada. Luis, Wesker, the merchant, Leon to a degree, but he's trying to hide it by being all tough. And yes, maybe this is a stupid headcanon, but Wesker not murdering Ada and saving her life counts as him wanting to get with her. Because I think that's about all the affection that Wesker can show. That's like the only way him showing up in person makes sense to me. Ada saves Luis, then helps him make a suppressant for the infection. She takes it, and of course he takes it and gives it to Leon to give to him and Ashley. She kills U3, which cures her. This is explained in a random note that you read. The U3 fight is alright. I thought it was a little frustrating, especially the centipede phase, but you can beat it. It's not impossible. After this, you ignore Luis as he's dying, what the fuck, and chase after Krauser. Then Wesker tells you you have to blow up the island for some reason. Probably because he wants to be the only one as evil as he is. Oh, Wesker. Ada gets a bit more characterization in this story. It isn't great, but it's there. She's torn. She's working for a bad guy, but she isn't a complete bad guy, just kind of a bad guy. At the end, though, as we already know from the main game, she decides that genocide is just a bit too far for her and doesn't give Wesker the Amber.
I can excuse
bioorganic weapons trafficking.
But I draw the line.
Genocide.
You can excuse
bioorganic weapons trafficking.
So,
a lot of the information in the story are things we already know. Even Wesker taking Krauser's body was something mentioned years ago in supplemental Resident Evil material, only released in Japan for some reason. This campaign definitely leaned heavily on atmosphere and incredibly cool moments. Not all of them are important or even make sense, which is a big thing with Resident Evil, but that's okay. If something is cool enough, you can forgive it, especially in Resident Evil. You get chased by like the entire village out of Mendez's house, which is a really fun and enjoyable moment. The El Gigante fight is one of these moments that doesn't make much sense. Incredibly cool and a lot of fun to play, but I don't think that giant-ass thing was gonna get over that rickety bridge, so Ada could've just walked away, but she was like, no, I'm fighting this bitch. Wesker showing up, again, is something I think that's cool, but doesn't make much sense.
Interesting.
Because he can contact you over the radio or send someone else, but Wesker is cool, and cool guy shows up and be's cool asshole in person is good for video game, I guess. Another such moment is the encounter with a brand new monster called the Martinico. This monster looks straight out of Dungeons & Dragons and has a really cool design, and in my opinion, the only reason it doesn't make sense is because it just dies after like the first 5 minutes that you see it. It shows up and is menacing, and then it gets cut up by lasers like one of those fucking apple slicer pushdown machines.
one slap, you got...
My hope is that they introduced it in this game because they're going to bring one of those back with the inevitable Resident Evil 5 remake. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. And last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, I want to give a general shout out to the atmosphere of this DLC. It's one of those smaller things because of the action focus that a lot of people will move past. The Separate Ways campaign somehow managed to feel even more fall and mood-like than the base game to me, and it just has a lot of neat set pieces and places as well. The laser room, of course, and that little lab, the random D-Day segment, the fire hallucination world that happens when U3 shows up, it's all very cool. You get to see these gigantic views over the village from the weird sidewalls that we saw all throughout the game, and you also get to explore a bunch of different galleries, and we get to see the drill room brought back in a way that just actually makes more sense. And also, the musical remixes in this are all fucking great. I love that shit. It just all feels really cool. It feels like they were definitely going style over substance, but at the same time, after enough style, it just starts to become substance. So, was this DLC good? Was it necessary? Yes, it was good. It was great. Was it necessary? No, but yes. Separate ways over the years became an integral part of the Resident Evil 4 experience. People would have been angry if it didn't get put in the remake eventually. It was just expected because it's been with the main game for so long. Even me framing this video this way will make some people angry. As I said, clickbait works. Woohoo, baby! Gotta love YouTube. Like and subscribe. The story isn't overall really enlightening, but a lot of people did need the information we got to set up for the possible or inevitable Resident Evil 5 remake. I just personally already knew a lot of this stuff. But I think as far as fun and just being extra game, it's great. It's a great value, it's a lot of fun, and it's memorable. Yes, it has its flaws, but a lot of those are just with the remake itself. It's probably one of the better DLCs that we've gotten for a Resident Evil game since the Resident Evil 7 DLC. I recommend picking this up. It's more Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 4 has basically become the Final Fantasy 7 of the Resident Evil series, so you know, eat that shit up. Eat while the eating is good. I'm GhostsOnHoliday, and remember,
You're gonna love my nuts.
Oh! Yeah!